Live.
Excellent, thank you. Hello world, time for another session for Najez Temple, where we are doing a salon, talking all things enlightening and uplifting for the human species and the human condition. All right, as usual, I take some interesting topics and just toss them back and forth and see what we make of them. And tonight we're going to be having the Najez here. Actually, it's just Naji right now, but I think some Nijai will be coming on a little later, at least maybe one. And then after we talk about two topics, being for the Najez, their polar and superpolar literal perception powers and how they kind of relate and get together. And then also talking about non-24 sleep cycles, which is considered a rare condition to have. I think it's actually more common than people know, but I think it's common as part of certain peak pathways doing what they do, and most peak pathways are suppressed. Najez in particular are suppressed a lot. So those we'll cover first, and then we'll switch over to Romantics Temple when Xiaolin joins us, which is really, really exciting, and we're going to be talking about Xi versus, not versus, but Xi and Ji as far as how they seduce, charm, bring someone close to them, build bonds, things like that, which both
there's Infinity.
Oh, hey, here's Infinity.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey.
And then after that, we're going to talk about Naked and Afraid, which had its season finale, and a lot of romantic mojos, Naiji, Nijai, and Chu Jaini were in that show, so it should be fun to talk about. Alrighty, let's go introduce ourselves. We'll get started. I am Naiji Coach.
I'm Naiji Mitchell.
I am Naiji Ben.
I'm Nijai Infinity.
And this is Naiji Glenn.
Excellent. So I want to talk maybe, I'm not sure how much time we have here. I want to get, which you guys want to jump on here? The non-24 topic, or do you want to jump on the polar and superpolar literal powers?
And we kind of were just talking about the sleep one, so.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about that and then see how far that goes. When we have time, we'll jump into the other one. All right, so I'll just give kind of a recap of that, is that the non-24 sleep cycle is considered a rare condition to have, but an interesting thing to note that we were speculating on is the fact that it is associated with people who are blind. But actually, to me, it's not really blindness. That's just an extreme example of deprivation / sensory overlap. And I do believe that Naiji, with their simulator, are going to have a lot of that, because I believe all humans have it to a degree. Because when people have been up like the North Pole and stuff, where they're like it's lit all the time, or it's dark all the time, if they don't actually have lighting cues built into their station, they get off the map and they start kind of like just moving. But like non-24, they start moving their cycle ahead. It gets irregular, and it kind of doesn't keep to 24 hours exactly. So there is something where, like, I think humans have a natural reaction to them, but they need cues. And one thing that Mitchell also mentioned is social cues. So seeing the light and seeing what other humans around you are doing, I think it triggers, people's central nervous system to, it's time to sleep, and certain chemicals are released. But the Najez are going to be having to where the ideas, the fantasies, the abstracting, the stimulator, it's going to be frequently giving them more of a story going on with them than the environment is. And I believe there's going to be a lot of crossover to, like, not having lighting cues or being blind, in that you are removed from the literal way things are going. And it's something I mentioned, Infinity is a part of that. I know that, for example, like Naiji particularly have a thing about being shaman, and they like to have certain elements to it that I've kind of studied over the years, and certain trends are there. And a very big one is this. Most shamanic traditions around the world share this. They go underground or in a cave where they control the lighting. The ability that you are no longer beholden to the sun cycles. You go underground, and if you want a ritual to last so-and-so days, you use a torch and some sort of drip device or sand dropping device to count time. And you count time on your own, and you light on your own. So I believe that whenever that's going to happen, it's going to cause for non-24. And I think certain mojos, they cry out for non-24 more. I think certain mojos kind of cry out for those, specific lighting and social cues. And then there's, like, I think a large population, it's kind of the middle. They'll drift.
Yes.
They'll drift non-24 if you give them no cues, but if you do give them cues, they fall into rhythm fairly easily. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Then other people, I think, if you don't give them cues, they will stay with that rhythm almost on their trying to hold to it more than others will. And then I think Nigez, for example, are the other extreme. They willfully try to ignore their current situation, ignore the current time. You know what I mean? Change the lighting. That's a big thing they like to do is like have mood lighting. You know what I mean? Firelight, things so you can make it whatever you want. So interesting on that. So I just kind of hand it over, but that's what we covered so far. And I think that Ben was saying something. And if anyone else has anything, please jump in. Were you saying something, Ben, or was I mistaken?
If it was from before we actually started the hangout, I probably forgot about it.
No worries. If you have something, go ahead and
yeah. You know, a huge motivator for me is actually the internet, the World Wide Web, because there's so much going on. There's, you know, dynamic. I mean, Facebook is just the icing on the cake, but I mean, it's coming from so many different websites, so many different sources, and that just feeds my brain. It makes me also Netflix, not, you know, watching TV shows, not wanting to go to sleep and everything. Just to keep the night going, keep it interesting.
That's really a really good point there, Anthony, because you're kind of showing, I think, there maybe the differences between the Naiji and Nijai.
Really?
But it applies to both and having, I think, a propensity for the condition, which is for Nai, I think there's going to be more of an association to sensory deprivation chambers, and I don't want to hear the stimulus. I want to go where it is quiet and I can just drift deep into my simulator. Well, you're talking about, and Naiji share this with you, and just share both sides. I think it's easier for the Nijai, which is creating a spirit forest of media. I like doing that too, but Nexi, something she shares that with me a lot. Myself, natively, I kind of like to go where it's quiet on a long walk or a drive or something, and that's most native. But what you're talking about, I also like to do, particularly Nexi, which is create like an internet, a playlist, and movies and things like that. But that also, I'll finish here. But that new way of doing it, also, that spirit forest is not the environment. It is powerfully not the environment.
Exactly.
Not like I detach from it, but the spirit forest is like I overlay on the environment my own abstracted thing, which I like better.
Right. Now, that being said, maybe I didn't completely understand what you were saying, but also going on hikes, you know, going in nature, but that's during the day.
No, you were hearing me. What I'm saying is I think both Nijez are going to feel it powerfully because there's two versions of it that are both powerful that way, and both Nijez have one. The Naiji half of it, and they have the Nijai other. The Naiji half of it constantly is they want to get where the signal to their simulator is not disrupted. So there's that. So naturally there is an aversion for the environment's social and lighting cues and sound cues. I want my own. And in fact, generally with Nai, I want them internal. That's what's different than Ni. I want it internal, and I really don't want the environment to give me any so I can make my own. But our other is a Nijai, and for you to be reversed. You're also going to like that because you have an other that also is most powerful when she can go alone.
It admires the quiet. It still admires that.
Quiet. So both Nijez are going to have that. It's a question which is first, because I have it very powerful, this next one, which is not native to me, but I love it, which is that media garden. Making a garden of cool internet sites and cool comic books and shows on TV and songs on my YouTube playlist. You mean because it's a different way than just attaching to the environment, which is cool the new way, which I really like. I can be with the environment, but really I'm still in the spirit world. I'm not actually here. Like, you mean, because when people see me bopping to the music, they're like, oh, he's bopping to the music, he's here. No, I'm not. Ni's really cool like that. That's where Ni's different, and that's why it's lower in the SS index, but also has a neat power Nai doesn't. It can attach to the world while still being magical. That's a power that Nai doesn't have. Nai generally doesn't like attaching, starts immediately dropping it, but Ni can actually be in the world as long as it, like you said, has some sort of media or other kind of spirit force it can create. It's actually like doing its own thing while it's occupying the general environment. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how I don't do a lot of just stepping aside and meditating or something like that at night. That's not the number one approach that I end up doing. Maybe I'd like to on a spiritual level, but I end up not doing that as much. But it ends up being something else.
I think it's native to kind of build up energy into one, and then it'll call to the other. Like for me,
Yes.
I'm curious of the Naiji thing, but for me, often I need to have my own space, or I will get cranky and I won't be able to get like what my spirits want to give me.
Absolutely.
If I get that though, and I talk with them and I mull on it, it generally makes me think, you know what, you should look into poetry. And as soon as that happens, then it goes to the knee. I then want to build a spirit forest of meteor things to kind of like give me information to connect me to it in the world. So I think for the Nijai would go reverse. You're going to like connect to all that in a spirit force, but then at some point in there, you're going to be like, oh, there's special rituals. And those special rituals generally want you to go isolate yourself.
I'll tell you what ends up happening. I'm watching whatever I'm watching on the internet and everything, and then I'm on my comfy couch, and I get tired, and I start blending into the comfy couch. It feels awesome, and then I'm sleeping in 10 minutes. I try to stay up, but I'm gone. But I think that drifting is kind of what you're talking about on the flip.
It is indeed, and also it doesn't have to happen in the same day. It can actually happen over time. Just simply it'll get built up. For example, like for Naiji, I'm sure talk about. If I'm mulling on something, I may go for long walks for many days. Like every day, I need to take a long walk as I mull and mull and mull on it. But then once I do finally get to the point like I've got something I want to like see where I can go with it, then I switch strongly to like the knee, trying to contextualize the world with it. So I think for Nijai, it'd be reverse. Ingest, 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 go to sleep. Ingest, ingest, go to sleep. Ingest, go to sleep. And one day you're like, there's a lot of these sites that I find most interesting. Why? Maybe I should go visit one. Going on a pilgrimage is classic Naiji. And I think if a Nijai like canvases a spirit forest enough, eventually there's be certain spots on it you'll want to go to, and you'll have to like, you can't just randomly go or bounce to it. You'll have to be very targeted with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in many ways, a lot of what I'm doing is targeted, but I think even more refined than just the starting point. The starting point might be a given topic. I'll look at whatever websites are out there, but then at some point, I might really refine the type of websites that I end up heading towards.
And when refining, I think that's actually getting into the VI, and that's not what I actually meant. So I'm actually talking more about your other on unconscious level. So you're going to get gifts. So for me, if I use my Nai consciously over a series of days to mull on something, and I'm able to close it out some, I'll then get a rush of knee cross contextualizing and drive to do more of it that doesn't come from me. It just comes naturally. So I'm imagining for a Nijai, because it is how it is for me and Nexi and how I do with Nijai in real life, it just naturally flows in the relationship, is you kind of see that the Nijai is bouncing around and gathers information and they're having a really great time. And you can see that some of it, whether they know it or not, has more meaning to it. And you're kind of like, I think you should step away for a second and take a detached look at your project. So not so much focused. I think you've canvassed enough puzzle pieces that you should step away from the puzzle and give it a, you know what I mean, go high in a mountain, quiet place, and look at it, and then come back. That's the Nai to Knee relationship.
It's so funny because I need to do that more. But it's almost like I would love to have those reminders, like those 2 a.m. reminders to do that.
Same here. Same here. Like the knee, if there's actually knee in my environment, an actual person, then I more quickly go from the mulling phase into how do I connect to something. If there's not knee in there, or I don't actually think to reach out to Nexi or something, it takes longer. So yeah. So having a real person or actively calling your spirits will speed that process up. And generally just knowing, this is crucial, that it's supposed to happen. A lot of mojos, particularly one, for example, that are like in the same mojo relationships, they are a common sort of condition of that is they actually don't know how to complete their cycle. Because there's a way you complete, like, say, from knee to Vi, that it hands off to Nai to V, which comes back to ni, to vi, to ni, but a lot of like you have like double ni zhi or double ni ji. You aren't really, you're used to going ni to v, and the other person goes thanks ni to v, ni to v, ni to v. You keep kind of doing that, and you'll realize actually for full like say synesthesia, all these senses together, all the perceptions, you would need actually to at least have obviously LA powers, but just going here with the senses, you're not actually having the turnover. Like you're talking there is like, oh, once the ni goes far enough to where it thinks it might have something, it then needs to detach. Once it detaches, it needs to actually do something with its hands. It has to viscerally put its hands on it. When that happens, it'll go back to the ni taking lead. And that's a full cycle of just perceptions. Same thing, obviously, for the discernment. You know what I mean? Like for Nai Ji, we talk this a lot. You need to actually, we'll talk a lot when Xiaolin comes in as well. But basically, you need to kind of go Ji, and then the Zhai says yes. And then their Z goes boom, and then your Zai goes yes. And there's all kinds of combinations of it. But you need that response to let you know, basically, I guess what I'm coming up with here, it took a long way to get here, but I say channel closure. Because you're not used to actually supposed to happen. You're supposed to fire any power, it's supposed to fire down its channel, and then get rebounded back with some kind of response, positive, negative, or neutral, of how it did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For example, like Ni, if Ni uses Vi, which it's naturally going to do unless it has Ni in its environment or it actually reaches out to its other.
Right.
You're going to be defining Ni in a worldview map way with Vi. This is critical. You're not supposed to do that.
Right.
You're supposed to modulate your Ni with the Vi worldview. But your worldview is defined as an Ajez by Nai.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense? And without,
Right.
because you may Ni to the Vi, Ni to the Vi, and you may never get what you need, or you may, this is critical, you may even got it, but don't know you have it. How do you know? You're built as the Jez to have a pullback moment. You need to divide a bunch, you think you have something, the Nai will then detach, and it'll give that detached yes, no. And that's what says I'm good to go. Vi will never give you the worldview map sureness that Nai will. You're an interpretive. You need an interpretive worldview to go, yes, here's something. You make Vi make sure, this is key, Vi makes sure your Ni doesn't mess up. But it doesn't tell you you got it. That comes from Nai. Nai says your Ni has added up with good Vi nuggets to meaning.
It's not a gestalt you got it.
Exactly.
It might be in research you got it. You got the right fact. You got
Facts.
this.
Exactly.
But you didn't get the gestalt. That's only coming from Nai. I get it.
Totally. And for your Ni, actually, really for any interpretive, that's where their sureness comes from. The Nai gestalt. I got it. Do you know what I mean? Like for all the interpretives, it won't be Vi that does that. Vi helps make sure you don't mess up. You know what I mean? On your trajectory of Ni. But whether or not Ni made something, what's the something Ni's trying to make? Why does it cross-contextualize? Meaning. That's what it's trying to do. So only Nai can look at all those puzzle pieces you gather are starting to link together and go, that creates this picture. You know what I mean? And that's what any interpreter will need to have momentum sureness. You know, momentum worldview map, all interpretives, it can be major or minor, it can be conscious or unconscious, but all interpretives use Nai for sureness. And Ni for upbeat. Is why Nai Ji probably know what I'm talking about. You can actually give yourself V lifts all you want. It's just not like Ni. It's like dirty drugs or something. You know what I mean? It's like it barely gives you any lift. It wears off soon. You don't feel great afterwards. Ni's like it's effortless. You stay up forever, and it takes a long time to come down. There's no bad after effects. It's the best.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I think the thing you're referencing, like you said there's something I said. I think it's where the hangout. I said that I tend to have a lot more energy at night than I do in the morning, right? And I think that's part of just the nighttime preference the Niji have, as well as a lot of the Neds Alpha have, of course. I'm sure that also heavily relates to the non-24, is the preferred times where there's less stimulus and stuff, and that allows our simulator to really get going a lot more easily when it's like easier than it's like the daytime or like we have like there's things going on, cars moving, whatever that are distracting us.
I also think it depends what you mean by your mind gets going, and it's a very subtle point but important one, which is in the morning I find that I'm not in the fast thinking state that I am later at night, where it's sometimes you can be a bit frantic, hard to get to sleep. But when I'm waking up, I really like I like the quasi state I get up in, and I really like to extend it. I like to kind of like wash dishes in sort of like a real rhythmic way that allows me to just kind of stay in it. Like I try to get it done but not perspire too much. Like I at each activity I go to, even I go to the gym, I kind of like do the weights in a way that feels comfortable and I don't interact with people. And I think you have to talk about it. Have you ever done this and not realize it? Like you go like 4 hours in the morning without speaking to a human?
Yeah.
You get deep in the quasi state, and you sometimes don't realize it until actually the first person talks to you, and you're like, oh, and you're like back to reality. Anyway, in the morning, I don't have fast thinking, but I have good detached thinking. It's like slow detached thinking, which is actually quite good. But it's like a very high level. It's not good for anything worldly. It doesn't work fast. But a lot of times when I'm waking up, if I kind of like be there the quasi state, I'll stay sleepy, but I'll be waking up just enough that the issues that I have about my day or my life will start to filter up, and I kind of look at them in that sleepy state. Like I stay sleepy enough that I still can be pretty detached from these issues, but I'm just awake enough that I can think about them. I don't think fast then, but I often think wise.
Yeah, especially like if I'm really tired. Like if I didn't get enough sleep, kind of tired.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, it's like we're so like good at just like when in those situations, just like Naiji Naiji in general, like they're pretty detached people, right? But like when we're like low on energy and we're like like our resources are going to be spent even less like with the environment. We're just going to be kind of like ghosting like things that we just don't like to deal with.
For sure. But I think either way, for both in the Jez, it doesn't matter which side of it is conscious for you. You're basically going to be having two modes of not being in the world signals. Do you mean you have the Nez power doing its own magic thing, and then the Jez doesn't want to be on like a logical regiment. And so it's going to be basically like doing media that lets you transport to your spirit forest, or you're going to be trying to find ways to ignore the environment. And it'll just be ping-ponging as an Nez between like methods to ignore the environment or methods to bring my own stimulus package. No, thank you, bro. I don't need your radio. I brought my own.
Yeah, that's why you see a lot of Nez with like headphones.
For sure.
Wherever they go.
By the way, that's what I'm trying to do on the field in the track 4 is like interrupting Nez with headphones on. I'm just doing that now. And so far they've been friendly about it. But I'm like, there's a lot of them walking around with headphones on. They're very approachable, but I mean, as far as like tactfully speaking, but yeah.
Like one thing, like especially with Naiji, you kind of should kind of get in front of them or something so they notice you first.
I was just thinking
tap them on the shoulder. Like if you tap me on the shoulder, I'll sometimes just like jump. Like,
yeah. When I did the last one, I actually walked up from behind him. I walked up in front, and then until he noticed me as I rose the cart up, and he was like, yes.
Yeah, that's good. Or like if you're standing in front of them and you know that they can't hear you, just like take out a card and be like, look, and then they'll be like, oh, what's this?
Yeah, so that's how you go the visual cue, and yeah, visual, and don't touch them.
Yeah.
I don't want to get cry chopped. I'm interested. I'm thinking also something else that both of the Nez are known for that I think also attributes to the non-24 is, again, it can come from a Nai or a Niue, but we like to binge. And generally, it's like if we start a pattern, we like to gobble on it until we get to the end of the pattern. And if that takes a few days, then that's what you do, and then you crash after you've gobbled up the pattern. But generally, you know what I mean? Like, if they don't go like a week straight without sleep, generally Nez, if they're into a project, they'll just not want to sleep much for a week. They'll just naturally only want to sleep 6 hours. Because they just want to keep working on that project. In fact, their want to do it just keeps waking them up. And then when
Yeah.
it's over, then they'll go through a period where they sleep more. They may sleep 10 hours a day or 11 hours a day because there's not as much going on. It's a recovery period. So I think that's naturally lends itself to non-24.
Especially like if I'm like on the kill, like I'm about to get like really just like, you know, do something really big or like
Yeah, last thing you'll do is go to
taste or
sleep.
something. I can't go to bed right before I'm about to like.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
Nets
Yeah.
powers are so close to the whole pattern that we can't like ignore it. Whereas like maybe like a Vez Alpha, that's so far away from them that they have this more regimented kind of parts sort of style.
If they have an aversion, where we have like a compulsion.
Yeah.
They're more like, I'll, you know.
Like
They're
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
nothing. It's fine.
Oh, all I was say was just real fast is I think that all interpreters kind of share that where they have to watch out like playing with certain patterns because you're like, how much time do I have before I have to go somewhere? Because if I start playing with it, I really don't like to stop.
Trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a meeting coming up, you're running a risk.
Yeah, I think all interpreters have to just deal with like I have some, and you're not quite sure what it's going to be. But it's like I have certain things that make me curious, and when they do, I get like I can't stop doing it. It's like you know what I mean? Like a Pringle. You can't just do one.
Exactly.
Just like keep doing it until like the last moment where you actually need to leave, and then you're like running out the front door, like.
Right.
So where you're actually like
One
exerting
hour.
more like the energy just to make the meeting that like you could have left for a while ago. I mean, it's just.
I know.
Oh, I'm used to that.
It's funny how scheduling works. Like, oh, there's like a hangout is about to start, for example. You're just like doing something else, and you just feel like you want to do that a little bit more. Like, hold on, one more little, you know, like this or that, and then I'm gonna join or something. And then finally you do. Or like going to school or work or anything like that. You like put it off as much as you can until you have to actually join and do the thing. It's funny.
Exactly.
All right, this might be a good pause point, and that was a good conversation, and we can switch it into now Romantics Temple, and have Jolene come in. I'd like to talk about Jai and G as far as like building bonds and kind of the whole relationship, things like that, how they do it differently. Jolene? Yay!
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go ahead and just set the scene, and then you guys just have at it. Oh, she's going over it. So basically, we were talking here a bit about Nai and Ni and sort of how they do things differently. And we kind of shift into the other momentum power for all romantics, which is their
Hi.
Chinese Eileen. So basically, we're going to talk about the Jez channel and how it's going to do what it does. And I guess there's two large aspects I'd like to cover. There's lots of variety to it. One aspect is how they individually do the Jez channel and the need for both sides of it. The fact that natural law made two sides that actually, although they're in the same channel, they actually can't have both be conscious at the same time. You know what I mean? So that's interesting. They share the channel, but they are so different. They're both, their job is to complete that channel, but they do it so differently that they can't hold the second half of their conscious minds. That's one thing. But then the other side of that is completing a cycle. That to complete a cycle, you need the other power in the channel to let you know that when you pushed your Jez from your side out, how that went. And when we mentioned kind of like as a counterpoint, that is like in relationships where you have, say, the same mojo as pairs, they won't have that. They're going to have double G or double Jai automatically, and so they won't have both sides of that and the ability to know, am I doing it? Because that lets you know that there is a Jez channel, that there's another thing not like you, but you really want to respond well and validate what you did on your side. And that tells you, it validates you that you're doing, what you're doing is real, and whether or not that real thing you're doing is being done well. And you need that. Any human needs that to be taught how to be. So, a general area, and there's just a whole lot to that. I guess I'll throw out a little buffet platter. It's just some of the things the Jez channel does is obviously emotional stability, emotional vigor, emotional expression, relationships, personal identity in a lot of ways, although that can be any powers and mojos, but a lot of times like the very passionate, this is me, this is my heart, what I believe in, kind of thing. building bonds, building trust. Those are some. There's a lot more than that, but that kind of just gets us started. So those things, how they're done differently, and how they complete each other. Anyone? Anyone?
Just with like relationships in general, or just like.
We're talking about seduction, 'cause I know that was
Seduction is another one.
Oh, seduction. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Are we just
being charismatic, being making yourself appealing to another person, things of that nature. Yeah.
So, for example, like the Jaini, the Naizi lady, for example, that we were reading the other day on Sunday,
Yes.
who is very much into the art of seduction,
Right.
and uses the dance to, you know, as an expression of it, and uses it as a life skill. I think she's embodying that that using the Jai as a tool of seduction very well, because you know it's all very sort of it's more like come here kind of more like enticing, but without pushing the environment necessarily. It's like
Essentially, because you used her, she's a directive using Jai, which changes things.
Yeah.
Because
But even the way she was doing it would make her more. When she was just using the Jai itself, although she always had an agenda that initiated it, but the use of it itself is
Very yin.
yin. Yeah.
yin, but it can be used in a powerful way to pull. She's using very kind of almost like targeted because she's a director.
Weaponized.
Yeah, but I'll focus on the Ni Jai and the Jai Ni for today. But I totally see what you're saying. It actually has the ability to pull. The kind of vision I got is like the way that both the adaptive powers can be seen as approachable. I think you can like flex the approachability. And when the Jai flexes its approachability, it's like a pull. Like you want to get close to it. You want to touch it. You want to please it. You want to be allowed to hold it. You know what I mean? Like it kind of like it calls out like from IG. It calls out a desire to connect, to hold, to do that. I didn't. I may have been somewhat aware of it, but it'll like make the awareness stronger to the point where it's difficult to not act on it.
It's interesting, yeah. It can be really inviting, so that like the Ni and the Jai can really make itself look like comfy, or like in that kind of sense. You want to like enter into that kind of like space, or they can do the opposite. And this is not boundary setting. This is like it's very
complex. But that you brought a very complex subject. What you're bringing up is the concept of tower bristling. Because tower bristling often can seem like boundary setting, but technically, actually, it's not. It's not saying don't come in, although often it may send that signal. It's technically, and the technical definition is very important, because you ask Jai, a lot of times will tell you, like, no, I'm saying don't come in. But it's actually technically not what it's saying. It's saying don't come in now. Approach. It is still. This is critical. It's still telling you how to approach. Approach later. Approach later. Approach different. Critical. Approach not you. Send someone else. So it's not saying I don't want someone to touch me. You don't touch me. Send someone over who I won't mind that being if it's not you. So it meant not you, or not the way you did it, or not now. But the bristling. Boundary setting is actually letting you know there is an agenda either I'm thinking about or I'm enacting with Dynamics Mover, and that's why you had to pay heed to it. It's in motion. But bristling is mainly saying no. You know what I mean? Like, but it's kind of saying it doesn't like how it's being approached, but it actually has not switched to being the Dynamics Mover. It can see you, and that's until that can come up. But just from the Jai point of view, it's just sort of doing this. It's basically waiting to be unlocked. It may be that no one in the environment is that person, or that motif might not be there, but it's still waiting for the right thing to approach it. The Ni may need to go out and find what that right thing is. Mm-hmm. But the Jai, even when it's bristling, I've been around a lot of Jai in my life, it's still awaiting the correct overtures. In fact, the bristling this is what's interesting with not boundary setting. The bristling is going to suck. See, boundary setting doesn't suck unless you go past the boundary. Bristling does. It's not boundary setting. It's unhappy. That's an unhappy tower. It just sucks. So actually, it's still telling you, give it the right overtures so it'll be happy. Does that make sense? The bristling is still signaling, actually, an extreme voice, feed me right. Approach me right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Then the G is more, is pushing, right? So it's moving forward and trying to make contact, to engage,
Yeah.
to push
We
over.
have that like
And then there's
baleful
structure. Count is, I'm sorry, Ben, but hand to you, but
Oh
also,
yeah.
there'll usually be some ritual, and for Durham's, that ritual will tend to be a bit more, say, multicultural or idealistic or something of that nature. But there'll be certain rituals that kind of let you know that trust, community, loyalty, warmth, bonds are being built. And as far as the connection, Jai going from bristling to unbristling, or neutral to unfolding, or unfolding to flowering, that signals. That's what the ritual needs to have happen to let the G know, yes, good ritual done well. Because if it didn't, you kind of do it, and you kind of just feel uneasy.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Ben, you were saying?
Yeah.
I was gonna say like with G that we have like the Buttered Baleful, and like we actually do have boundary setting because G is a directive power. So when we want to say that something is wrong, or like the way that that someone is doing something is wrong, we may express baleful energy, and that actually is pushing on the person, saying that very in a very pronounced way what we actually feel about what they're doing.
Right.
But sometimes it can be it can be positive. Sometimes we can smile, or like we can say this is going really well. This conversation is going great. Everything's good. And we can express ourselves that way as well. And that's still saying very in a pronounced way that we actually feel that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's like encouragement, like you're steering it in that direction to stay in that direction.
Yeah, we're pushing it in that way. Yeah, exactly.
Doing in an approving or disapproving
Yeah.
manner.
Excellent.
Yes.
I had a kind of vision here of that real quick. That was a really good thing you said there, Ben, that you kind of alluded to a correlation. It's always been there, but I don't think we really kind of made it so formal now, between the baleful of G and the bristling of G.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
And that was really good. And then the benevolent of G, and then I think probably for nurturing or something
Yeah.
of that nature. Because
Yeah.
more than healing,
Ooh, I
if
like that a lot.
you're already healthy, it makes you stronger.
Yeah, that's.
Your vital resources get exactly. It feeds nutrients to that central core of you.
Agreed.
So I'll just say something. As far as the little vision there is that counterpointing what Ben was saying, how Xi does it, and we're talking how they do it differently. The pleased or displeased. Jai does that as well. Obviously, bristling is I'm displeased with the way I'm being approached, and that is displeased. The kind of vision I get for when it's pleased is kind of like it goes from being bristly with dry bark, and the leaves tuck to themselves, and like the pretty flowers, they like retreat inward. It's like the ground around it gets more softer. It opens up like a tree, and a big thing I kind of get from that is it kind of feels like an emotional, like a canopy. Like the flowers, and the leaves and the tree branches, they spread out, it becomes open, and that's very inviting. That like accentuates the like I'm open to you approaching. It kind of like almost like a fruiting. It kind of like expands and it looks shady.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, provides a safe place that's nurturing.
But interesting enough, and again, it may seem interesting, is that both those are equally strong, just like baleful, benevolent. They're equally strong at telling you what to do. So the canopy is saying, approach me. My vital resources, which normally aren't open to people, I'm actually open to you approaching. And so it's saying, literally, feed me, like approach me. Then the let's exchange. And then with the bristling, It's saying something needs to be brought to me so I stop bristling. The environment needs to change so I stop bristling. So ironically, it's displeased. That may seem like boundary setting, but it's actually powerfully, I know for myself being around, say, bristling Jai, if it's like bristling for like a reason that's legit, it tells your G like like I'm hearing like an alarm, a Jai like pump.
A siren.
Vital resources, unhappy, in danger, not set right in alignment. Like you can't really do anything else except get on it. You need to get on it until that stops happening. So it's an alarm, but an alarm is not actually boundary setting. Actually, it's saying get on it, do it better, do it right. Or
I agree.
Yep.
Wow. Well, I've never heard it this way.
That's really, really cool. So
You almost need to make a new video on this. That's really powerful. Well, we have a video here, obviously, but wow.
Obviously, is going to be how that comes into being. Being directives, Durams are going to be seeing like an overarching story, and by being good people that pick a higher story to go with, then as those things get accomplished, there's G's like, yes, the good story is winning. It's getting its way. You know what I mean? It is getting momentum in the world. And so that will tell the G whether it's doing well or not, and also which side of the good mood, bad mood, so to speak, of Zhez is supposed to be. So it's going the right way, and things are favorable. The weather's favorable, the team is up for it, the world is responding to it, then it's pleased, because the tribe need to go there, and things are going with it. The wind is in my sails.
Yeah.
Then if the wind is going against you, it's time to be baleful.
It really feels like emotional weather. I mean, it feels like it feels like a dark, like on a bristling day. It feels like a dark cloud is hovering over you, and you can't move until something's dealt with.
That's for all the Zhez, and I'll give that just a second. I was kind of separate.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's very good. I want to get right to that, so I'll hand it over to you.
Cool.
As far as the G, where it gets, because your dark cloud is going to come from the knee. And I'll talk in just a second. For the Durams, who are known in a directive way for being moody, it's because the Nai has a certain vision of how it's supposed to go for the tribe, and then based on that, which a lot of people can't really read, that will tell you whether or not the day's going well. And then the G will be baleful, benevolent, based on whether the Nai says the day's going well. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
For the Adaram, it's going to be different. It's going to be the knee feeding the tree. Whatever they're being fed, if the environment, because the knee is in the environment, if the environment is feeding them positive things in that moment, then the tree will be receptive because it wants to pull in more of the goodies that the knee is bringing. If the knee starts bringing in toxic stuff, the Jai is then going to constrict, bristle, and block things coming in because it doesn't look like what's in the environment is what needs to be. At least right then. You see a classic one like this, you see like underwater, those corals and so forth, they kind of like flower out and they expand themselves. They have these little fluted stems that come out and they capture all the good nutrients. But the tides change. And when tides change, they'll change in nutrient quality and in temperature. And they will then just pull everything in. But what's deciding, basically the canopy of welcome versus the bristling is based on
the environmental.
The environmental
conditions, right?
What's being sucked in.
Has to
Offer.
Yeah.
Oh,
But then that's where the need comes in, or the perception powers, like figuring out what the good places are.
Yes.
Like, so if you're feeling, so if the Zhez is feeling, or the Jai is feeling impinged, and is in a place where it's, sucking in like poor nutrients or something that an environment that's not conducive, essentially, then it's about the perception powers to try to figure out, okay, what are the good places to go to where it will be more conducive to the Jai.
Yes.
You talking there, that was awesome, and also gave me another vision, like a more nuanced to that as well. Not for what she said, that was totally fine, but actually gave me like another layer of what Jai can do. Is it can move, like she was saying. It can actually reach out into the environment and be more active in like an environment that has like a low percentage of goodies. If the knee gets like more ramped up, it can be more active and like sifting. It can do that. But the Jai can also do this. And this is why, again, even bristling, it's still letting it come to it. Bristling is technically the ultimate filtration system. That's critical. A filtration system is not actually boundary setting, because filtering for what? Whatever it's filtering, it's letting something in. The primary purpose of a filter is actually to let something in while keeping the unwanted out. If you wanted to just keep stuff out like boundary setting, you'd make a wall. You don't make a a filter, even if the filter is set to like maximum filtration, bristling level 1,000,000, that's still basically just setting how much is let in.
Yeah.
It's controlling the approach.
But you're.
What's let in? Yeah.
But still approaching.
It's still approaching. You're still allowing the environment to come to you, and then you're just saying how you feel about it. But you're not actually going like, no, I'm coming to you, environment. That's my wall. In fact, I'm annexing part of your territory. That's my new wall.
I think for the Nijai, when Jai goes to Z, then that wall is being built. What you start hardening your heart. You don't even pay attention to the matters of the heart, and you start going Z. But as long as Jai is sort of running the show, yeah, there's a permeability going on.
In fact, that's a great nuance too. Thank you. That's another nuance to Jai. This comes up a lot. You see in movies, for example, where there'll be like an Adram who is critical. They are not bitter. They are not jaded. But they've seen a lot of messed up stuff. Currently, it's really messed up, and therefore they're set to bristling level of a zillion. However, have you noticed that Durams can still spot they want to be approached? They can tell that that's actually not like a total shutdown of like Jai bitterness, or even Z kind of like trying to be something they're not. They're simply not allowing anything they don't want to get to them. But they're still. The Z can feel this, especially the Nai.
You just need the right.
You need the right code.
Exactly.
Approach, because otherwise, this is critical. You would have taken over more to make it what you want, or you would have just left entirely. But it didn't. The tower is staying, but not taking over. Either can or doesn't feel like it wants to. So basically, it's still leaving itself for the right approach. And I'm using a lot of things where there'll be an Adram who everyone's like, oh man, that person, oh. But actually, you can see the way the director will film it. You can clearly tell if that person's a cool person. No one else really notes that, but generally the way it is that the audience can tell from the camera's capturing of their little moments no one sees that shows they have a warm heart. Mm-hmm. And then everyone else just sees the other part, but not that. But then the Duram hero comes in. Somehow their Nai is able to either catch them in one of those moments or speculate. Like you look at them and you hear their thing, and this scene happens a lot where the friend will say, oh, that person, the Adram, is like this. And the Duram's like, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? Like they see what's going on there differently.
Yes, they have Nai.
They have Nai.
Yeah.
And yeah, Durams are just very good at reading Adrams and vice versa.
And vice versa. And so the Adram way is the fact that the Durams can both having Zai obviously development, but big times the Nai detachment and the control it gives you is that we're often very hard to read. In fact, Durams can be so hard to read, we have a hard time reading ourselves. That's a problem. Because it's funny to think Durams badasses like an MMA like Jinai and Naiji Crush, and one of the things is, I want to be that person. I don't care if that person in my dreams was my hero growing up is 6'4" and I'm 5'2". I don't care. I want to be that, and that Nai, I want to be that person, that's very positive. The downside is you could actually have, for example, Durams maybe having relationship issues that aren't going the way they want, and they don't want to see that. They don't want to actually have the things.
The story not go.
The story exactly.
The way they actually.
Exactly.
Or the characters not be acting like they should be in the story that the Durams have in their head that they're trying to enact.
Or even the Duram themselves, they may want to believe that that performance I gave was actually a performance that's like that vision in my head, but it wasn't. But I really want it to be, so I want, you know what I mean, that drive's good, but sometimes you didn't actually do it right. And so, or it could be you just are nervous, like no, Durams could be nervous, and they need to acknowledge nervousness, but a lot of times they don't want anyone to know, and a lot of times it's better if people don't know, generally. Generally, it's good that Durams can convince people. You see the ring all the time. We can be scared. Generally, they don't think we're scared. They generally think we're really fierce. Actually, you can give credit to also the Baiji in their way. Generally, if they're doing it right, the G Mojos are good at convincing the other people that even if I'm nervous, no, I'm winning. This is what a winner looks like. I'm in control. My emotions, my confidence is. Everything you do builds my confidence. When I hit you, it builds my confidence. When I miss, it builds my confidence.
It's interesting. Like I always have like a lot of nervousness, anxiety about things. But like if more is put on me, I don't generally get that much more nervous. I actually just set my standards higher usually. But I still feel it. Like I'm always being pressured. But like when I'm more pressured, like the nervousness, anxiety increases maybe a little bit, but not much. It's weird.
That's kind of something I think that a lot of people are going to experience who have more sensitive kind of peak pathways. Romantics obviously big time have that. That you're kind of operating from a very imaginative, passionate place, and it can be a bit overwhelming. Just actually things that happen at the grocery store, like something happens that throws you off, and you have a desire to cry. You're like, oh my goodness, you know what I mean? But you do. Or, I mean, but the fact that you live like that all the time, when it gets more heightened, actually it's a phenomenon that you mentioned, Jolene, I noticed quite a bit in the ring, is that often the logic-based mojos in general do not fight well hot. Yeah. But
interesting.
Jez mojos do, and without a question, statistically, it's an advantage. It's an advantage to be able to fight hot and be able to ride the heat.
Although it's notable that on the values-based mojos, the ones that are fighters, you don't really see Jai fighters. For the most part, you see like G fighters.
Right.
So and so it seems like G is able to handle that kind of pressure really well, and like it like the on it makes it like flex.
I see what you're saying.
And the flex seems to be really hard for others to deal with, including like Zenai, and definitely I think it's like probably
that makes a lot of sense. I think.
That's very true.
Because you don't see any like shiny or Nijai fighters in the ranked.
Okay, but I think it still counts. It just that might be a sportive difference. I think an analogy for that would counterpoint it would be in which we'll bring up in a second. Actually, it's Naked and Afraid. In Naked Afraid, there is a lot of Jai. There's a lot of Nijai and shiny females.
Yeah, there is.
These are mainly.
So this is Zenai.
Yeah, and
Zenai, sure.
All of them with their Jai is if they have a healthy Jai, it can handle discomfort longer and better. And so I think there's like that's more less of an active but more of like a defensive. But it shrugs off getting down. It's really interesting that way. Like if it feels like it stays in touch with what it considers like its true self and kind of like finds itself, it can shrug off the mood that the environment is bringing to it, which is really quite cool. Because G, this is where G's strong in that it can create things, it can build things to make mood. But there comes the price. It really fucking bothers us if it doesn't build right. Do you mean because G's like, let's fire, let's do this? It's really good. It'll make culture, it'll make an environment, but when sometimes you can't be becalmed. When G is not able to make it get better, it feels very powerless, and you have to kind of endure what the world brings in the best mood, with the best grace you can, and Jai just rocks at that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And you'll see also like the Z Alpha going forward and trying to get flags forward and being very, very proactive. They also don't like being becalmed, but they try to distance themselves from other people and trying to build tribe, not as natural tribe builders. But it's interesting because they can get power like politicians, so they can be part of a power chain, but it's not so much like. Seems a little different than like community building.
That's because you're usually going to certain power institutions, or it can be new one, but it's a power block, and then you are doing what it takes to be the highest achiever in that block, and then you can control the block. So like if you actually do the best things that make you like the CEO of a company, then you get put in charge of all the employees in that department. That's how, you know what I mean? Like you don't actually have to build up by building all the. See, that's why Xi would work. Xi would get into position by building up to the people. Z is going to get certain positions through, logical universal requirements, like you've got a certain degree. That degree gives you this job. That job gives you these employees. So it does build, but it gets in the reverse way. But I'll just say real quick on that is that relating to the MMA fighters with Xi and then also the survivalists with the Zhai is just this. If you're more used to existing and using that power. So one thing, for example, the Xenite can be strong this way, but they generally have leaned on the Adroms in this regard, which is when they really lose control of being able to dominate the environment, to make it do what they want. And you just have to accept and find the best place for yourself within that. If you're used to using that, like Adroms are, as a life strategy, this kind of goes with what Ben was saying. If you use that to deal with the frustration of traffic, the frustration of coworkers, the things of that nature, and that's what you normally use, then you add on bug bites and sunburn. It's extra, but that muscle is very developed. It's used to actually doing a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So same thing with like you said, the Xi with the MMA is like when it gets heated. If you're used to doing that on a regular basis, then you're actually able to use that energy. It actually, one thing like the Zhai, some of the survivalists, when it hits them and the Zhai is able to hold, they get a sense of empowerment. Like they get empowered that like that day was rough. They do a lot, but I'm still okay. They have this like I'm still all right. I'm still actually at harmony even after a rainy night, and they get strength from that. And if you're used to doing that, then you're more likely to go to that tactic. You know what I mean? If you're not used to it.
Yeah.
For example, when you segue into this now, is the Naked and Afraid. There's a wide variety of Zhai states in there. There's the two Nai Xi and the Xi Nai who left early, but there was quite a lot of Zhai action going on to talk about.
Yeah.
But I think we've been covering for some time. So I'll just give a brief overview real fast, and then I'm going to hand off to Xiaolin to kind of give a bit of a synopsis of what happened when they got together in the studio. And then everyone can chime in. I know Glenn has a lot of backstory of all these different events. So I'm going to go real high level. Normally Naked and Afraid is 2 people, 1 man, 1 woman, put on a remote location that is inclement for 21 days. This new one was like an all-star season. It had 12 people who were put out in 4 groups of 3, but they were allowed to band together as they see fit, and the challenge is 40 days long. The main differences. Okay, over the course of it, there was several different dramatic things that went on. I'll let Jarlene get to that a bit more. But basically, the groups converged on each other. Some people actually ended up falling out. Most of the people who fell out was because of personality issues. I say the Xi was probably the only one that actually I think that was just health stuff. But the other ones, it was actually more personal stuff. And then at the end, with the remaining people, it was a set of 2, the Nai Xi male Christian and the Xenite male ex-military guy, who were very strong, but also I think need to work on their overall mandate. But they were very strong and competent, and in individual scenarios, I approved of their morality, and in general, they have shown growth. The other side, the other people who were remaining all clumped together in one team as well. They were not as strong, but they did have a community, but I believe that community turned on itself a bit, which was something that was unpleasant to see. And that's basically how the season ended. Everyone finally did get there at the end. Oh, one last kind of major drama is in the last push, the 2-man team did not, even though they were sleeping close to each other for a while, still did not want to make the final trek with the other team because they considered them to be, dead weight. And so that caused some heartache. Right. So I'll let Xiaolin kind of take it from there and give like an overview of what happened in the studio. But those are the major themes that kind of made these things go down.
Yeah, and feel free to jump in as well.
Sure. I think Glenn and Evie have seen some.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
The only thing I haven't seen is the last episode, the studio episode.
Yeah, same here.
Everything else I've seen.
Just one thing though.
Glenn?
Just one thing though is you mentioned, Coach, that most of the people that left was because of personality issues. one of them the Jinai, but then also the Nijai. I don't think that was necessarily a personality issue.
Yes,
It was
I did not mean hers.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
not.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I just wanted to make that.
No,
So,
no
yeah.
way I'm saying on her, but I do. It still stands the principle that I don't think she left because of a physical reason.
It was social
Oh,
dynamics.
okay. Yeah.
It was social dynamics, in my opinion, not her fault. It was their fault, but it still was a social, a personal reason that made that happen. It wasn't a technical health reason, I think.
How many
Right.
people tapped out? 4?
12.
4. 4 of 12. Okay, great.
Well, so they were all there in the studio, and let's see, I may be saying this not in the exact order that it happened, but I think that Honora was one of the first ones that they came to her storyline.
I think some might give you like a thread to kind of follow through.
Yeah.
Is do what you're just doing now, but go from the point of view of who grew and who didn't. Because
Okay.
that was kind of the big
Yeah,
takeaway
that's
me and
true.
Jarlene got is most, it was like some did, some didn't.
Yeah. So from that perspective, so the Naiji male, Christian male guy, I think he grew out of the experience. He was talking about how he I don't know. There was a part where he was talking about that he felt like he was a little too boisterous when he.
The time when
animals.
he told them that they couldn't have someone's eel at
Yeah.
first, and then he took. First of all, he still didn't have to give him that eel, but he felt bad that he kind of like snubbed them with that second eel, and he said that was the first time that afterwards I looked back on it, I felt like a jerk. So he totally owned that, which is funny because actually
Which is funny, yeah.
he wasn't really totally in the wrong
He
there.
wasn't totally in the wrong there, which is why it's murky because the.
But
the other
he owned up in
tribe
his
had-
part.
Yeah, he did own up to his failings.
They
but-
never mentioned
Yeah,
that
no.
team didn't share. That never came up in the
yeah,
studio. That's
which
amazing.
Is what had an issue
That's
with that one.
surprising.
Isn't it?
The other team had like the smaller catch, but they didn't. They were trying to hide it from EJ and the Naiji Christian male guy, and then they got found out, and they still wouldn't even like they were. You had to twist their arm to get them to share, and then like.
They did share.
Yeah, and they didn't. Oh, that's right. They didn't share because then it amazes me that they still felt entitled to the eel that the Christian male guy
That was after
that
this.
hunted afterwards. Yeah, because that was after they stumped.
Yeah.
But props to him. He grew.
It's this interesting like numbers, kind of like influenced by numbers, like that you can like. That you feel entitled to get away with poor behavior and bullying smaller groups, even if like the only
Double
reason why
standards.
and the only reason why they kind of backed off is because the male Christian guy is so strong in his own right that he can hunt for his own, and they really don't have
Didn't like that.
leverage, and they don't have anyone like that. Because otherwise, it would even seem more ugly.
Yeah.
ugliness
But he grew.
out of that. But he
And
did.
then how about EJ?
Yeah, EJ grew too because he realized that.
He had two growth moments, I think.
Yeah, well, the one that I'm recalling specifically here, and maybe you can chime in with the other one. I don't know if I remember that one, but it's where when one of the Nijai, the one who had done the competition with him previously, when it was a pair, a couples, or a pairing guy-girl, she was the Nijai, and she had done that feat with him earlier. And she was also in this like
All-Star Challenge.
all-star
This one
challenge.
was right.
Yeah, so she was part of it. She was the one that was she was part of the 3 Nijai
Laura Zara.
later the team, and she said, she told him how she felt like that the fact that he didn't because she said you clearly are the strongest person here. And the fact that we had been so close in the other challenge, and then here you kind of just ignored everybody and didn't take any sort of leadership. She said that she felt that he could have like stepped up and really been the leader to bring everybody together.
She actually said what I had said before, which is she challenged him that you say you're so strong, but actually a true leader would have got everyone through, particularly when we were friends on a previous challenge. But EJ, give him his credit. He owned that.
Yeah, he said that he realized
Oh, that's
that
cool.
he missed an opportunity, to actually, be a
Be a
leader
builder.
and be a builder and try to bring people together. So that was really cool to see that, he seems like he's taking that.
Yeah, so not the Christian
with him.
thing or the military thing necessarily,
Like a
but I got to say both those guys have consistently matured and grown through their experiences. I'm glad to see that.
Hmm. Yeah, Infinity, you looked like you were.
Yeah, what I was going to say was, what is the time gap between between when they were rescued and the time that they went to studio?
That's a good question. I don't know. They didn't tell us.
I don't know. Yeah, they didn't tell us, but it was interesting that the one guy, yeah,
That's
he
okay.
had the beard. He didn't have a beard anymore when he was in an airplane when he met his girlfriend, but he had a beard
Again.
still in the studio. So it's I don't know if it's
He
like
must wear
before or after.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There's
Yeah.
some time.
What about
Yeah, so Honora.
Honora, take it away.
Because it was sort of like the Christian guy, and then
Anybody want to take bets?
And then
Did she go the mature route? Anybody?
Yeah.
Which one is Nora? I'm trying to remember who she is exactly.
The
She's the guy?
guy who threw the
No,
tools
blonde.
into the water.
She's the blonde ninja.
Strawberry blonde. Yeah,
Okay.
has a reddish tint.
I don't think so, but she's sandy blonde, dirty blonde that threw the tools in the water.
Is she the one who bonded with EJ? I mean, at first in the previous show, or that's a different person?
She was the one with the Naiji male and the Z9 male in the first.
Really? Okay. But yeah, she saw the videos and didn't think she'd done anything wrong.
Because according to her, the Z9 males, yeah, it's like it's got hints of reddish, not straight up
Subtle.
golden. Cool. So yeah, yeah, 'cause she said that the Z9 guy was a male chauvinist pig, right, according to her. So she wasn't going to apologize.
And even when like the Naiji was trying to be cool about it, you know what I mean? He was like trying to like say this and that, but like she just would never even take any. So the whole group kind of like rolled their eyes, like, okay, she's crazy. she's crazy. That's going on here.
Yeah, they just all started laughing at one point, and it's like.
Okay.
The Naiji dude was actually trying to be nice. I feel like the entire time they were on the actual show, but nope, she just didn't. And the dude.
He tried to reason with her in a really very nice way afterwards during the studio because he was sitting right next to her.
She was too far gone. She's like kind of a little bit psycho.
Yeah.
Oh, but real quick, EJ had another moment when the Nijai, Danny, rightfully so, complained about how her team turned on her. EJ said he kind of started, and when she said this, her team was like, you know, the Zenai guy, no, it's in your crazy head. Tunisia, like, no, and Nijani. And they were all acting like she was crazy. I was really proud what happened. It turned. Partially, most of them were still being goofy, but there was a turn. At first, it started with Zenai, slightly, where he said, yeah, I wanted to, he apologized. He basically said, like, I wish I had done things differently to some degree because when he was looking, he didn't say it, but he kind of alluded to the fact when they're playing back the footage, he kind of said, like, I was going with what the group kind of said things were, implying that, like, seeing the video now of, like, Danny's actions, he's like, she's not the person kind of like she was portrayed to be. So he kind of apologized for that. He wished he had he had come to his own conclusions. Kind of alluded to. He wished he'd come to his own conclusions about Danny rather than accepting what was given to him.
Did he want to include her in the group? Like, because I know that he said something like, "Oh, we're a two-man group."
Right. He didn't say anything about that. That didn't really get addressed. But he did say that. But it was actually Naiji, give him his credit. I was really proud of him. He actually said that, you know, looking back on it, you know, you realize in the heat of the moment things seem like they're okay, but when you look back on it, you realize that wasn't done right. And he apologized to her, and she really appreciated it, and it actually spurred one of the Nijai to also apologize. But the Zenai dude, the Tujaini, and the dark-haired Nijai still didn't budge. But I was really glad that three of them did, and especially the Naiji, that he actually like made a formal apology.
That's cool. That's cool. So the hippie guy, yeah.
And he really wasn't one who was shit talking about her, but he didn't defend. He didn't do it.
He was kind of a little bit more.
He was passive.
You know,
passive.
Yeah.
I think he regretted it. So he should have done it at the time. But at least he regrets it now. In the future, he'll be more proactive in such a moment.
Yeah, it seemed like it was sad because it seemed like Danny was carrying more of a weight from it. You know, it hit her pretty hard. So we were saying that we hope that she gets to go on another
one. So she could have succeeded.
Yeah, she could have. She had it in her to finish the competition.
She totally could have, yeah.
I think if someone had been supportive of her, I think physically she was totally cool to make it.
Yeah.
It was emotionally, she was like, I don't, when you're feeling already like physically really depleted, to actually have negative will towards you, that's really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, for them to call her like a
sociopath, I was like, that's some really
ugly
ugly stuff.
It's like, what's your evidence? Like, really, people like that, right?
Yeah.
And Honora did have her one like wise statement.
I'm curious. What's the wise moment?
All the crazy she didn't say in reference, because Danny, was obviously she was crying and feeling very emotional about like how they had done her wrong, and Honora came in and said, Danny, one thing that I've seen with a natural instinct of like human instinct to do in these kinds of situations where you're struggling and surviving is for their tribe members to cannibalize one of their members.
That's totally what I said.
Yeah.
I was like, it seemed like that team got down. Remember, guys, I was saying this before. I was like, unless there's some hidden footage, it just seemed like they needed someone to bag on.
Yeah,
I mean, like they're down and they
together.
just needed to rip on someone to feel better, and she just tried to continue to target.
Well, it's almost like they're eating her energy, right?
Yeah.
It's like they're sort of like turning against her and saying like that. Kind of
our state is you,
yeah.
And we can get back at our state by saying you're causing it and being down on you.
And that kind of like
sucky.
brings us all together and gives us more energy.
That's a crappy way to bond.
Yeah.
So I'm glad the Naiji, when he looked back on his experience, he felt bad about that and apologized.
And then the Zenai, the one who was.
And it did, and then the Nijai, she did actually apologize.
She did.
It took the Naiji going first, but she did a thing.
And it wasn't the most sincerest.
That's true, but I give her Jai credit that she felt guilty when a Naiji that the way he talks. I think a lot of people kind of respect him and his ability to kind of like say how things are in an even way. When he kind of like said, "I think I did bad," and obviously he didn't say this, but he's apologizing formally, saying he believed in his opinion that was required. Everyone knows of the members he was the least disparaging to her. So it kind of set a statement that the one who was really just passively going along with it says, I think I need to make a formal apology. And that hit her Jai enough going like, okay, I probably should. Like she's like, I think maybe she didn't grow from, but she was kind of kicking the floor like, okay, I did that too. But at least she Laura Zara? Nah. The Zenai dude? Nah. It's all you.
Who was the Nijai that gave the somewhat insincere apology?
The insincere apology was the
one who
Eva.
was the partner of the male Christian guy in the previous.
Eva, I think her name is.
She's the rock climber.
I think so. Yeah, with the dirty blonde hair, shorter.
Right.
Yeah.
The darker haired one was the one that didn't apologize.
Did apologize.
Yeah, the taxidermist.
Interesting. Okay.
Was there anything else?
There was the Zenai.
That was good.
Yeah, so.
That was all over the place. But there's a hug. There's a hug in there.
There was. So the group where you had the two Shiny and the one Zenai, and they clashed against like philosophies of surviving. So for them it's like then they bonded right away, which then created like this,
The two Chinese.
Yeah, the two Chinese and one Zenai kind of outnumbered. Because they clicked as far as the philosophy, which was for them, it's like we have our Jai, let's just try to like close our towers and like try to tough it out.
I have to interject one thing here because that's all true, and that's also they put on the show, but they left some critical things out. Like two critical things were left out today. I was surprised. One, the fact that group never shared their fish after the eels were shared, but the other was. The Zenai, I give him credit, I guess the Zenai being nice to him, because he was basically like, I was ostracized for this and that and blah, blah. And the most he said was like, I know that, I can be all over the place and I can be a bit raw and difficult to deal with.
Right.
Dude, you're a dangerously unstable person. I think that's a more accurate description. So to say they just ostracized him because they were having a Zhai bonding thing and they had a lower energy strategy, that's true. it's also true they were kind of like he was like there's unseen footage. He's like sharpening a knife, looking all crazy, like ex-platoon vet or something.
Oh my God.
Like, okay, seriously.
That's freaky.
Yeah, even
not making them feel safe.
No.
Yeah, that's what like he was trying to.
that's different than strategy differences. You know what I mean?
And I
That's
wonder, like, how it would have turned out if he would have been in like the EJ male Christian guy.
You saw how
like,
puppy he was around them. He was so puppy around them.
Yeah. Well, I think that might have been like, cause he needed to like,
He's a firm hand.
he was going into there to like prove he was a man, but he still didn't have as many skills as the Naiji Christian guy
Or emotional stability.
Yeah, or emotional stability. But I think that if he would have gone into that team, from
Objectively
the get-go,
speaking-
he would have grown.
Objectively
like more.
speaking, if you had to assess that Xenai's failings, yes, he was not that great at survival skills. He was horrendous for someone to deal with. Like, if right now, if I was like to go work in some shop, you walk in and like the person you're working with has only the most basic of box making skills, you can still make it work. But you walk in and you're gonna try to make boxes with them, and they're like eating the box and they're drawing like faces in there, like "Dad never loved me." Yeah, I don't think I could work with this person.
Use of power.
I got some box skills, not relevant at this point.
Bye bye.
That's it right now.
That's pretty good.
That's true. They did paint it as they were just going with the note of
Yeah.
two clashing
Philosophies.
and that he was he owned to like I'm I get raw and I'm a difficult person to deal with, but then they showed his footage of when like he had met up with them and they sort of like because at this point they had a full-on riff. And so they're like, we don't need your help. And the way he had presented it was like he was doing them a favor by coming back to help. But the Jaini was like, well, we've been doing fine without you here, and you're actually unstable, so we don't want your presence. And so you're trying to make it seem like a favor, but that's not.
But then he
really
says
what's
on the
going
studio, I came to you humble, and then you hurt me. Okay, sir, that is not what transpired.
No.
Personalities to justify themselves are amazing, and I would never cease to
Oh
amaze
my
myself.
God.
But then they showed
Even
like-
there's video. Even there's video. That's amazing.
So then they showed a clip of him breaking down, in tears after an encounter with them, and
Move them.
that moved them. They moved the Jaini that was like the toughest one in the group, like that had her, Jai set.
'Cause funny, he's acting like a
bristle.
like a hard ass jerk.
Yeah.
Whenever you'd see him, but then when you get to his camera, no one loves me. So when they showed him this, they'd never seen his camera. So now the Jaini are basically seeing all his hidden cams, where he's like, they don't like me. Day 2, they still don't like me, and so they felt bad.
Yeah, that's true. You always came to us like as a tough guy, but I'm actually seeing, like that. I didn't realize how deeply this affected you, and
Yeah, it's like I realized it was like amble to our face. And as soon as you go to the woods, you're bawling. I mean, that puts things in different context.
yeah.
And she hugged
they
him.
Hugged it out.
They hugged it out.
They hugged
He's still crazy, but
All right.
I'm glad they mended that rift. that's something, right?
And then Laura, she didn't grow.
She didn't grow up. I don't think really.
No.
I mean, she's got some formidable survival skills, but as a
Yeah.
person, thing. I say the Xenai, he wasn't there long enough for it to really be transformative.
No,
Really?
it wasn't.
The Xenai, the one who was kind of crazy, I think he grew a little just from this. I think he found this so upsetting that next
It's possible.
time, I think he may he'll still be goofy. He'll be like, listen, I want to be really nice and bring donuts and everything because I was like with some Shiny, it didn't go well, and I really want it to go well, I really want it to go well, I really want it to go well, I really want it to go well. So he's still gonna be goofy. But I think maybe he'll at least be trying a little better direction.
Didn't bring donuts.
Maybe.
Gotta watch
You know,
next
so- Eva, again, I think she didn't grow a lot because she mainly had to be guilted into it by the Naishi's apology. But she did do it, and I think when she sleeps on it, she's going to realize,
She's gonna feel better with her soul.
I'm glad I did it.
Like I'm glad it.
in fact, she probably think, I wish I'd done a little more graciously.
Right.
Yeah.
The Christian guy, EJ, grew a lot. Like all the things where actually it was messed up and actually it was a lot of other people's fault, they actually took ownership of their fault.
Yeah,
Because EJ's like, I should have been a builder, more of a leader, inclusive, and he never said, you guys do kind of suck a bit, and you did cannibalize one of your team member, and you didn't give me any fish after I gave you 2 eels. But whatever.
Who's counting?
Who's counting? You know.
What's the problem with the mandate?
They just take ownership for their affairs.
Yeah.
You're saying, Glenn?
Glenn, you were saying?
I was just asking, what was the problem with their mandate? Because I know that there was something wrong with the 2 of them, but I wasn't able to quite pick up on, or maybe you can just like remind me.
Sure. Well, there's a couple things there. Probably the 2 that jump out most dramatically is one, the antagonistic view towards the environment and the need to subjugate it and just take what you want from it, and that shows that you're winning, that I take what I want from the environment. That overall edge that Christian background and military background has, viewed them with, I don't like. I don't like it. And therefore, it's, in the smaller sense, that's the issue in both these cases, because they are strong at getting game and shelter and so forth, and they are, I think, strong morally in that I give them both credit. Their morality, although is skewed from the mandate, within that skewedness, I will give them this credit, they did not lose their morality when things actually got harder. Do you know what I mean? I give them credit for that. But the issue is, overall, it's kind of this place like, I need to dominate the environment. That's not sustainable. That kind of thinking is what leads to the world being in the ecological, disaster state that it's currently in. So to think that I'm winning because I raped and pillaged the environment and got off on killing things more than other people is actually kind of a false victory, because that's actually not sustainable. So you're using a non-sustainable, I just take what I want and get off on it, as that's a way that you could live life. Because they're kind of portraying this is like the way I live my life is the way I'm doing the survival challenge. Well, that doesn't work. So actually, it's one of those classic things like false humasta. It's scary because that mandate of how to live life is incorrect. However, they happen to be the best survivalists, which can very much confuse the issue. It's kind of like actually you can have an argument with someone about math, but they're actually 6'8" and disagree. You know what I mean? And so that's unfortunate, but that's kind of what happened there. But yeah. I do think in individual circumstances, their morality and their skills were strong. But the other big picture thing, which they did grow from. So one of the 2 big things they did grow from, so maybe we'll get the other one later. The other one was the idea that winning, besides the methodology, is the 2 of us. The fact that we know that there are another 10 humans here, and there is totally the possibility of all of us getting through. And the fact that you shirked that, it's weak. And actually, Nijai called him on that.
Yeah.
You basically said, I can't do it. I can't have a whole tribe be successful. I just need to start cutting people off now. Weak. That was actually...
Makes a lot of sense.
So those are 2 things I disagree with. But with that said, like they kept the code they were going with regardless of their situation. I do admire them for that. And mentally and skill-wise, they were strong. So.
And they did share. So they did kind of like.
That's what I'm saying. So within the individual motifs, they were consistently showing good morality. It's just that their overall take on what their purpose is there, I disagree with. And I'm really glad they saw that because hopefully they realize how dangerous they can be. I think they do. And the responsibilities when you are an apex anything, provider, creator, whatever, problem solver, then you get a lot of credit for what you say life is. You know what I mean? Your way.
You need to be more responsible.
Be responsible about that. So I'm really glad they've been owning up so far. You know what I mean? And to give the Christians credit, I think he had, because he didn't directly go there, but he kind of did. When he complimented the one Nijai so much about how she taught him how to walk, that could be his way of Anunnaki Christians. He was trying to give her way of life credit without putting his Christian thing in jeopardy, but I do think that's what that was. He was trying to say, like, that alternative way you do one with the earth, that's got some merit. Without addressing, obviously I'm still a Christian man and hunter man and everything, but on the hunter man, he said, I went a bit far, and I was kind of a jerk. So that was good. And then on like, what was the other one?
About the way of life?
About the way of life. Basically saying like, there's things I don't have that I don't see. Basically, it was very subtle, but I do believe him complimenting her so much on her teaching him that walking method was his Nai way of saying, you teach me things I don't see. There are things I don't see. That's a seeker. I give a Christian credit. That is a seeker way to be doing. So obviously, I want to be moving faster and higher, but that's growth. That's consistent growth up. So good for him.
So,
You guys are a little bit fuzzy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It seems to kind of go in and out.
There we go. Oh, I'm curious. Probably sign off here pretty soon. But one thing that I'd like to get from Jailene a bit is your take on two things. One, just the Jailene in general, what you thought of them. You know what I mean?
the shiny that were on the show.
Yeah, just general thoughts. And on it as well, it's something that I think Stargirl brought up last time. And you mentioned it as well. Actually, you mentioned it first, and then she mentioned it afterwards. Is the idea of like a dominant Jai, regardless of its health, can kind of sway the rest.
Oh, yeah, a Jai tower.
Kind of sways. You mentioned that you think may contribute to the turning effect on the Ni Jai. That there was like a unspoken Jai tone.
Tone that had been set by a more dominant Jai Bojo. We're talking about Laura and Eva.
Laura and Eva, exactly.
Yeah. So because they're and it was.
Because you thought the Johnny may have just kind of picked up on that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So
when the groups melded.
When the groups melded, yeah. So because there were the two Jaini that were together, and then there were the two Nijai that had paired up, and Danny was kind of the odd Rom out. And so when the tribes came together, it seemed because from the Jaini there was one that was more dominant, the one who was older, the one who was non-vegetarian, who got into a rift with the Sinai guy mainly because the other Jaini was actually just trying to,
more aversion, not
openly confrontational. So she had sort of set this tone of like, we don't like him, and I'm like the strongest, and so Danny's just trying to be, not Danny, the other Jaini is just trying to be conciliatory and kind of going with the flow, and not ruffle any feathers, so she was going with that Jai, the stance from the other Jai.
Trying to be nice.
Yeah, trying to be nice, and then with Eva and Laura was like the more alpha in terms of like her opinion seemed like. Eva was trying to be more pleasing to Laura from kind of the get-go, kind of their dynamics, and Laura was the main one who was like.
She has more of a go-get-it kind of personality.
Yeah.
I think Danny's kind of like reclusive, like more sensitive thing. It bothered her.
It bothered her. It was like too much, like two ends of the spectrum.
Rift
spectrum. And it was over her threshold, and she didn't like it, and so she set her Jai to not like towards Danny, and that. And she ended up being like the most powerful, having the most powerful pull of all of the Adroms when they came together into one tribe. And so it ended up like even the Jaini got sucked into that, and the Jaini were swayed by the primary Nijai, which was Laura.
And also the acceptance of it that she'd already established with the other Nijai. So it's kind of like, oh, that's the thing.
That's the thing. And
it kind of has a cascade effect. Like it went like.
In a very short period of time, they were very like negatively charged.
And again,
against, Danny.
And everyone kind of noticed this in the video. For what?
Yeah.
Like it was like the Jai was unhappy. Someone's like, she must be bad.
Yeah.
So when you look at the video, you're like, but there's really nothing to corroborate
and
that.
And she's even like trying to elicit feedback from the
she asked, what can I do? That was her. I thought me feel bad that she actually.
Like,
what can I do?
What can I do to make this situation better? Like she's like, I'm trying. Tell me what is that I need to do, and they wouldn't. I thought they just wanted blood.
They basically said like it's too late. It was too late.
Yeah, they're out for blood from that.
You see, there's a cascade effect, like the two Nijai. Well, actually, like the one Nijai you mentioned, Laura, she kind of turned the second one, and those two Nijai turned the two Jaini. And then, as I mentioned once before, the Zenai, I think, saw the opportunity to be a big man and pull somebody aside to give him a talk. And he kind of now saw that there's 4 Jai that were probably going to give him carte blanche on that.
Yeah, to be pushy.
To be pushy, and then unfortunately the Naiji just went passive. and just saw all the momentum in that direction, didn't do anything about it. But give him his credit, when he saw it afterwards, he's like, I should have done
Like,
something.
I don't like the way that
Went.
went.
Yeah, I think
He felt bad being smart about it.
I think he let his like physical condition because he felt like really tired, right, and stuff. I think he let that get to him too much.
Yeah.
That combined with that weakness there, and the combination of like the Jai had just like
Taking this life, this
Stance.
fire, like the fire and stance, like, you know, we're just.
that's the bad.
Yeah, that's bad. That's evil, and it took a very like witch hunt. This is interesting because they used that earlier for, I think, Honora, but like really like the Danny case.
witch hunt.
That was a witch hunt, and it really had no merit. It kind of took a life of its own, and it's like when you
Oh,
look
you know
at
what this is?
footage,
Oh, would you agree,
it's
Charlene?
not really bad.
In Jai Keening, like this third stage is like, was it like the purge?
Mm-hmm.
And like that can be really good at the right time, but I think they basically had like an unhealthy thing, like we need to purge.
Yeah.
Purge. If we purge her, everything will be
Everything
better.
will be okay. Yeah.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Question. She was on the receiving end of that.
So,
Unfairly.
hope you guys will watch it. We can talk about it more some next time. I'm really curious what your thoughts are, because there was more going on than just that, and there was a lot
Yeah.
back and forth. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch the final episode now. The studio.
and-
Same.
October, it starts back with the regular season. Wahaha.
Cool.
We will continue our next grade coverage because it is fascinating to see humans in that state, because especially like mojo reading, we do a lot with like trying to see past ethnicities, to see the mojo, to see past their macking game, to see the powers at play. So I really like how it strips away a lot of things, the culture and things like that. You kind of see more like, that's humans.
The
Like,
humanity.
like that's like how humans work. That's humans how they did mojo and always have.
Yeah, the animal instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. What happens
Definitely.
when you're naked and
It frees. Dun, dun,
Naked
dun. All right, everyone. That was really awesome. Thank you, Charlene, for sitting in.
yeah,
Thank you,
it's
John.
lovely.
Thanks so much.
It's nice talking to you, since I don't usually talk to you like except like before the Sunday hangout. So
I'm definitely going to have this happen
Likewise.
You're
more.
always welcome here.
Yay.
Excellent.
Always welcome.
Glad to hear it.
So
Thank
we
you.
should do romantic
Absolutely.
stuff.
No, because I think it's something we can
Big
actually.
time.
We'll talk about this, but actually, I think that would be really awesome. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Really great. So I'm riding a nice high on that. I'm going to go out here and give me some din din. Everyone, have a wonderful evening.
Enjoy.
And 9
Good night, everyone.
tomorrow, right?
Yep, I believe so. Yep,
See
exactly.
you tomorrow.
Have a great night.
Night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.